Mariana Trench is the deepest part of the ocean, with a mind-boggling depth of over 10,000 meters. We know more about the surface of the moon than this mysterious underwater world, which only 3 human beings have ever visited. This undersea canyon is home to some of Earth's greatest secrets. Today we're learning interesting facts about the Mariana Trench. It's hard to imagine a depth of 10,984 meters. So for reference, you could put all of Mount Everest into the Mariana Trench with more than 2 kilometers to spare. The Challenger Deep, in the southern end of the Mariana Trench, is the deepest spot in the ocean. Its depth is difficult to measure from the surface, but modern estimates vary by less than 305 meters. In 2010, the Challenger Deep was pegged at 10,994 meters, as measured with sound pulses sent through the ocean during a 2010 survey by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. The ocean's second deepest place is also in the Mariana Trench. The Sirena Deep, which lies 200 kilometers to the east of Challenger Deep, is a bruising 10,809 meters. The Mariana Trench is 2,542 kilometers long, more than 5 times the length of the Grand Canyon. However, the narrow trench averages only 69 kilometers wide. If you're wondering why the trench is so deep, it exists at the point of 2 convergent plate boundaries. As the plates push together, the valley floor drops even deeper, just like the peak of Mount Everest grows higher every year. As you can imagine, the pressure at the bottom of the Mariana Trench is so intense that virtually all life is unable to survive. To be exact, the pressure at the bottom of the Mariana Trench is 1,086 bars, or 17,750 pounds per square inch, which is more than 1,000 times the standard atmospheric pressure at sea level. At this pressure, water is 5% denser than it is at the surface of the ocean, and the temperature is extremely cold, varying between 1 and 4 degrees Celsius. This makes the bottom of the Mariana Trench truly inhospitable to life. With a pressure of over 8 tons per square inch, a diver unfortunate enough to enter the Mariana Trench without protective gear would be flattened in an instant. The machinery necessary to reach such depths is state-of-the-art. The submarine used on the most recent mission is called the Limiting Factor. The Limiting Factor was pressure tested in the chamber and had already done 5 practice dives to the bottom of the Mariana Trench before its first manned voyage. In fact, it's the only vehicle ever constructed that's capable of multiple dives to full ocean depth. In the submarine, you're completely protected by the 3.5-inch titanium sphere. The diver won't experience any pressure changes or physiological stresses at all. Bizarre deep-sea creatures like the anglerfish have captured the public imagination, but the Mariana Trench is home to some of the world's wildest animals. One is called the goblin shark, which has between 31 to 62 rows of lower teeth and 35 to 53 rows of upper teeth sticking out of their scary-looking jaws. Specialized joints allow these jaws to move forward. Goblin sharks are slow-moving and track their prey using smell, sight, and electroperception to wait until their victim is unaware. There have only been a few sightings of these sharks, so they are believed to be extremely rare. Another is the zombie worm. Zombie worms, also called osedacs, are not your typical zombies. Instead of brains, these creepy creatures eat the bones of whales and other fish. But because they don't actually have mouths, zombie worms secrete acid to dissolve the bone and bacteria. Then the worm digests the protein and fat. Incidentally, the females are the bone eaters, while the males live inside the females. The barrel-eye fish is very strange. What you think are sad-looking eyes are actually decoys, and the real eyes are those large globes under the transparent dome of soft tissue. Comedian Stephen Colbert even called the barrel-eye fish the craziest thing he had ever seen. The deep-sea dragonfish is a ferocious predator that lives at depths of up to 5,000 meters. This animal is only about 6 inches long, so there's no need to fear for your life. It has a striking resemblance to a Chinese dragon, which is most likely where its name came from. You're probably wondering how these fish survive such intense pressure when any terrestrial animal would immediately perish at these depths. The most recent voyage revealed a fascinating creature called the Mariana snailfish. This creature looks entirely harmless, but it's actually the top predator at the bottom of the ocean. These snailfish are numerous in areas more than 8,000 meters below sea level, making them the deepest living fish ever discovered. It's hard to imagine exactly how difficult life is for these creatures, but to put it in perspective, the pressure is equal to 1,600 elephants standing on their heads at the same time. They have several novel adaptations that help them deal with this pressure. For one thing, there is a gap inside of their skulls. Researcher Kun Wang from the Northwestern Polytechnical University says this may help the internal and external pressures to be balanced. In fact, most of their bones are actually made of cartilage, so they are more flexible and less likely to break under the pressure. They also have special genes that help them process proteins, which are normally broken down at such great depths. Most people picture the bottom of the Mariana Trench to be similar to a sandy beach setting, but they would be completely wrong. That's because thanks to everything that trickles down from the miles above, everything in the trench is covered in a blanket of viscous ooze. Sand as we know it doesn't really exist down there. The floor of the trench is comprised mainly of crushed shells and the corpses of plankton that have sunk to the bottom over the years. Due to the immense water pressure, everything pretty much ends up ground into a fine, grayish-yellow, almost silky sludge. One can only wonder how deep the ooze floor goes down before Earth actually begins. Many scientists believe it to be the oldest place in the ocean, so this sludge is truly a primordial goo that has been accumulating for millions of years. Of course, no human would ever be able to experience this slimy ooze without bringing a sample to the surface. The Hadal Zone is the deepest part of the ocean, often called the gates to hell. It extends from approximately 6,000 meters to 11,000 meters below the sea surface. Because life does not reach this part of the ocean, it is impossible for plants to grow, but there are still resilient creatures that manage to find their home in these depths. The Hadal Zone represents the deepest marine habitat on Earth. Much of the knowledge of hadal biology comes from two sampling expeditions in the 1950s, with the Danish Galathea and the Soviet expeditions of the Jaws. Far from being as lifeless as it was believed at the beginning of the studies, the observations made have since stimulated the hypothesis that the Hadal area is home to an important diversity and abundance of animals. Studying the Hadal Zone gives a better understanding of how creatures withstand the absence of essential matters which the living need to survive. The Hadal Zone has limited to no oxygen, the temperature is low, and the pressure is very high. Knowing these things opens our mind to the possibility of life in space. In fact, if life can thrive in the Hadal Zone, it is likely to exist in various places across the galaxy. Because it lies directly on a fault line, the Mariana Trench is home to several undersea volcanoes. The Mariana region contains 9 volcanic islands and more than 60 submarine volcanoes, of which at least 20 are active. Because the water at such depths is extremely cold, this causes boiling water and freezing water to meet instantaneously. Because humans don't monitor these volcanoes, they may be erupting at any time. Here, ocean crust that was born along the mid-ocean ridges millions of years ago in the eastern Pacific is recycled back into the Earth's mantle as the ocean floor descends into the Mariana Trench. A portion of the ocean crust remelts and rises to the surface behind the trench, along a line of submarine volcanoes and volcanic islands extending north of Guam for more than 1,000 kilometers. According to marine geologist Bill Chadwick, we know that most of the world's volcanic activity actually takes place in the ocean, but most of it goes undetected and unseen. That is because undersea quakes associated with volcanism are usually small, and most of the instrumentation is far away on land. Many of these areas are deep and don't leave any clues on the surface. That makes submarine eruptions very elusive. In 1860, Charles Wyville Thornton wanted to make a boat trip to conduct oceanographic studies. On December 21, 1872, he sailed on the HMS Challenger, a modified warship for the voyage, carrying everything from fishing gear to microscopes. The main objective was to travel the oceans to measure depth, temperature, and salinity. On March 23, 1875, while the team was conducting studies near the Mariana Islands, the sea literally swallowed 8 kilometers of a measuring line they were carrying. It was at that moment that the researchers had managed to discover the abyss. The first descent to the bottom of the Mariana Trench took place on January 23, 1960. The French-built U.S. Navy-operated submarine Trieste, with Swiss ocean engineer Jacques Piccard and U.S. naval officer Don Walsh aboard, made a record dive to 10,916 meters in Challenger Deep. The next person to descend into that location did so more than 50 years after Piccard and Walsh. On March 26, 2012, Canadian filmmaker James Cameron piloted the submersible Deep-Sea Challenger, which he had helped design, to 10,898 meters, in the process of establishing a new world record depth for a solo descent. A bathyscaphe is a submersible vessel with a spherical room for research and observation. Trieste was the name given to the bathyscaphe that would make history by traveling into the Challenger Deep on January 23, 1960. It was named after the city in which it was built, on the border between Italy and Yugoslavia. Scientific and navigational instruments for the vessel came from Switzerland, Germany, and Italy. In August 1953, the bathyscaphe was first placed into the water, and later in that month, Auguste Piccard and his son Jacques dove to a depth of 5 fathoms. Purchased by the Office of Naval Research on behalf of the Navy in 1958 through the efforts of Dr. Robert S. Dietz, who worked at ONR's London office, Trieste was designed to go deeper than any craft before it. To this day, it is considered a remarkable feat of engineering. On January 6, 2009, President George W. Bush established the Mariana Trench as an American national monument. The monument includes no dry land area, but protects 95,216 square miles. President Bush was able to do so because of the American territory in nearby Guam. The monument is divided into 3 distinct sections: the Islands Unit, the Volcanic Unit, and the Trench Unit. It's unclear exactly what President Bush's intentions were, but the decree will protect extremely sensitive ecological habitat from the damage of commerce and drilling. For instance, undersea calderas are home to some of the rarest life on Earth, which contributes to the health of surrounding reefs.